Anshula. Anshula?
Anshula?
It sounds like enchilada to me.
Yeah, that's a nickname.
You are a non-resident Indian or a Paradesi.
Paradesi?
Paradesi. I wanted to basically talk about your experiences as a non-resident Indian. You were born in Delhi. Mumbai.
Yep.
Delhi. Okay.
Delhi.
Okay, you were born in Delhi. How old were you when you moved to the States?
2.
2. Okay. Do you remember anything from India?
No.
And you haven't been back since?
No.
Okay. And do you want to go back?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Like, I'd love to. It just hasn't been the right time and
money.
Yeah.
So growing up, obviously your mom tried to endow a lot of Indian principles, ideas, culture and whatnot. How were you growing up as an American? Did you take to it immediately? Like, what was that like, that struggle? Because, you know, growing up here in the States, obviously you're surrounded by white people, Americans, etc. You know, not always white people, but, you know.
Yeah, with different cultures. I didn't really have a choice, I guess. I just had to do it. I'm also Christian, so I think it's a little different in dynamic.
There are certain expectations placed on you, right? Even in this video, I'm sure people watching this have certain expectations of you, just being a non-resident Indian. Like, you should know this, you should know that.
The Jana Mana.
The what? I don't hear
It's the national anthem.
Okay. Do you know the national anthem?
Not by heart. No, don't make me say it.
I'm sure there's a lot of, like, well, a lot of Americans don't know our national anthem by heart. There's a certain, like, merging of Indian culture and American culture that happens for you, and that's a very unique experience. I mean, a lot of Asians experience that here, right? I'm just wondering, like, if you could describe that pull between being Indian and being American at the same time.
I think there was a shift in America in the 90s and early 2000s. I got like condemned and made fun of a lot for being Indian and being different. But now it's almost something that like I get notoriety from. I loved being Indian and I wanted to embrace it more than anything. People just didn't understand and they weren't as open to certain things. I do remember my mom making food at like a potluck one time. She made like lentils and rice and stuff, and I overheard people saying like, oh, I'm not gonna eat that because it's like poor people food. And
oh God.
I know, and now everyone like loves lentils.
It's a hip thing now. It's
yeah.
all like, it's become bougie.
Like super trendy and so I think there was that shift of where
now it's hip to eat the Indian food.
Or just to be ethnic. I'm sure it happens with other cultures too, but I really saw that happen where it was all these things that I got made fun of before. Putting coconut oil in my hair. I remember specifically a girl when I was younger, and it was like a group of girls too, but she was the one who like spoke up. She was like the leader of the group, right? So she came up to me and was like, we don't want to be friends with you because you smell. You know, like, of what? Of curry? Or like, because I bathe every day, you know, maybe because I put oil in my hair and it's jasmine oil, so it smells different than what they're used to. I don't know, but I think it's just like kids just picking on you, you know? Like, I would put henna on my hands for like special occasions, and growing up I had friends, they're like, oh, what do you just like drew on your hands with like marker or whatever. But now everyone gets it for like festivals and stuff, wearing the bindi.
People go participate in Holi now.
Yeah, I've had so many people tell me about the color run, and I'm like, oh, you mean Holi?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's definitely been like a shift, and I don't know what really brought that out, you know, but I've definitely noticed that.
How does it make you feel seeing that shift? Like, was it frustrating or was it just exciting? Because as a kid, you obviously, it sounds like you really enjoyed and appreciated your Indian roots. Even if you don't know everything about it, it seems like you craved to be part of it even more. Obviously, there's a limitation because you're not surrounded by Indians other than your immediate family. Yeah. Right? Did you have Indian friends growing up?
Not as much, no. I don't know. I mean, I've always kind of tried to. I always approached, you know, like the Desi group or whatever, but they just never really vibed with me, or I don't know.
Why do you think that might be?
I don't know if they even really knew I was Indian, because a lot of people don't. I've literally had people who are Indian like talk crap about me in Hindi in front of me, thinking like I'm Latina or something, and that I don't know how to speak Hindi when I know exactly what they're saying.
Do you respond in Hindi when that happens?
Sometimes, yeah.
You make them feel stupid and then walk away?
Well, they're just, I like to see their reaction, and then they get like mind blown, like, what? So now I appreciate that everyone is more open to it, right? But there are times where it bothers me because there's a lot of ignorance involved with it sometimes. Because I feel like it's almost trendy now to do a lot of things that are very cultural to us.
Like what?
Like wearing a bindi or doing like henna.
You see Americans, like white Americans doing this. Okay.
Yeah. Like doing it at festivals and stuff, which is cool. Like, you know, more power to you. Like you want to explore different cultures. But I think what bothers me most is the fact that they don't necessarily know what it is and where it comes from. It has significant roots, you know, and it means like a lot. Our culture, it goes really far back, you know, it's like thousands of years, so it does have like a lot of meaning.
So as an NRI, there are certain people you might not know about. How does that make you feel? For full disclosure, like I brought an Indian person on this channel who's an NRI. I think she's half Indian, half white, and she didn't know who Mangal Pandey is.
Okay.
Do you know who that is?
Not like entirely.
But you have a cursory understanding.
Yeah.
Okay. So
and like who Bhagat Singh.
You know Bhagat. Okay, you know Bhagat Singh is. Okay, cool. Yeah. That's a point in your book. Because when she didn't know who Mangal Pandey is, she got so much shit. People came down on her so hard, she was getting death threats. When you're growing up here, I don't think a lot of people realize that kind of pull between, I experienced it too, that pull between your Asian roots and being an American, and how American culture doesn't necessarily, now it does, now it's cool, but it didn't necessarily embrace you being Asian.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Only now we're starting to see people accepted for being Asian, for being mixed, because up until a certain point, I'll talk to any random white person, they don't necessarily see me as white, even though I'm half white. It really messes with me, because as a kid, I used to look at the mirror and hate my face. Because I would be like, I wish I was white, like David. Like, that was literally his name in class. This dude, he wasn't even white. He was Hispanic, but he looked white. He looked white like my dad. And I was like, I hated not looking more like my dad. It made me angry that I looked so Asian.
I remember being in okay, I might get crap for this. But I was in second grade and my teacher brought up Gandhi, and she's like, oh, you might know who he is because he's Indian, and I didn't know who he was. And
you were in second grade.
Yeah, but like, you know, he's such a significant figure, and I went home and like bothered my parents. Look, I really want to know about my culture and like where we come from, because you're not really taught about it in school, you know, you're taught about American history.
Yeah.
So especially in at that age, you know, you don't know anything. That's when I really tried to know more about, you know, my background. And I did deal with colorism, and I think it's still kind of predominantly there, where I think I used like skin bleaching creams up until high school.
Okay.
Not really because I felt like I needed to be more fair, but because other people kept telling me that I needed to be more fair.
Really?
Yeah. So when I would go to the store, or like I remember going and buying my first makeup compact in middle school, and everyone always complimented me on my complexion, and I never really believed them because I had so many other people, and I'm sorry to say, but it's like people in my family too, not my immediate family, but just I think Indians.
Extended relatives.
Yeah, where I guess being more of a darker complexion, it's kind of frowned upon.
Yeah.
There's this cream that everybody uses, Fair and Lovely. So I used that up until high school. I don't think I even realized like what I was doing. It was just like a common routine for me, and to apply it and use it. And I don't even know if it was really working. I just stopped altogether. And honestly, that's, I think, when I started realizing what was kind of like being indoctrinated into me and what I was doing. Because before I was just like, oh, this is just everyday life.
How does that make you feel now? Like saying that out loud, like how does that make you feel now?
It's really liberating kind of to know that I don't really care if you think I'm too dark. Just don't look at me then.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I embrace it now. I think I'm like the only one in my family who actually wants to go to the beach and like tan.
Do people ever comment on your English?
Oh, all the time. And I think that's why they think I'm not Indian. I think I have an accent when I speak Hindi. I have that American accent just because I've been living here. And English is my second language. So
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I mean, it happens, you know, when you spend, okay, so I know someone who's French, who is Spanish-French. She's Spanish and grew up in France, but she was away from France for so long that when she went back to France, she had an American accent.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that in second grade, you had to search out information about Gandhi because you just weren't taught about him.
Yeah.
And so my question is, in general, you know, growing up, how much were your Indian roots really offered to you in terms of the important historical figures besides Bhagat Singh? Was it easy access or was it something like, you know what I'm saying? Because like if you grow up in India, you're going to have certain information just bestowed upon you just by virtue of the fact of where you're around. By osmosis, you're going to absorb certain information. Just like here, by osmosis, you'll find out who Abraham Lincoln is. You'll find out who George Washington is, who are all these important historical figures, Andrew Jackson and whatnot, Martin Luther King Jr., you know, Malcolm X. You'll find out all these names, even if you don't know the full breadth of the history. Just by being here, you're going to hear about this stuff. And so there are certain things you miss out on not being in India. How has that been? Like, has it been a struggle to find information? Obviously, Google exists now, but I'm saying growing up, you know?
Sometimes it is just because even my parents have been here for so long. Like, my mom has lived in this country longer than she's lived in India.
Wow, okay.
At this point.
Okay.
So there's a lot of things that they kind of like forgot. Like they were taught Sanskrit in school. Now when I see anything or I ask them like what it is, like they don't really know, and it's not their fault. It's just, it's not that they chose to forget it. We still embrace our culture a lot, but a lot of times you gotta kind of assimilate like where you live, and this
right.
I think is where they call home now.
Yeah, right. My dad used to say, you know, because he was a really incredible pianist at one point. And he said that he largely forgot a lot of what he learned because he didn't practice.
Yeah.
If you stop practicing, you will forget your skills. I think there's something like that linked to it, where if you're not regularly trying to dive into that knowledge base, the Indian zeitgeist, and fully understand what's going on all the time, you're surrounded in the American culture, it's like, yeah, you're naturally going to forget certain things. I guess your parents can't really be blamed for that. You're just trying to live your life.
And it's not like they're wanting me to be more American or and then like less Indian. Or I've tried to make a lot of Indian friends where I can like speak Hindi with them. I just don't have that.
Well, okay, so on that, when you approach Indian people here, Indian Americans, how often do you find that they actually speak Hindi?
Not that often.
Okay.
So I like to kind of seek out those ones that do speak Hindi, or even Punjabi or Gujarati. Like I understand a little bit of the different dialects. Majority, everyone kind of understands Hindi. It's like generally the same. A lot of the words are the same, but yeah, not a lot of people still speak it. So.
Right.
It is hard to find, and I don't want to say that sometimes maybe they're embarrassed to speak it, because for me, I love, like, if I meet somebody and we speak the same language, I love talking to them in it. Not like I'm talking crap about other people, or it's just to, like, revive that,
yeah,
you know?
You're just embracing that language.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it's just nice to have that, and I think sometimes some people might feel ashamed or they're insecure, not necessarily ashamed, but maybe their Hindi isn't as good, and I know mine for sure isn't, but that doesn't like stop me from at least trying, you know.
If you're comfortable talking about it, is there anything that you've dealt with as an Asian American where you had certain expectations placed on you that you struggled with? Like with my mom, for instance, just to put it as an example. She had certain education expectations of me. There was a lot to live up to, and I couldn't live up to those expectations.
They weren't as strict on me for school, mostly because I think both my parents knew that I have a younger brother. They knew my brother and I were really capable, you know, like we're pretty smart, and we, you know, at least can get by.
Yeah.
So they weren't worried about us too much there. I think they just wanted us to be good humans and be humble and like have respect for everybody. They taught me like a lot of things that I still really appreciate. I mean, I couldn't appreciate them as a child because I was just like, oh, like giving me another lecture, you know, but
A lecture about what?
how not to judge a book by its cover, don't lie, or don't, just like things
Basics.
like, you know.
The basics of being human.
Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like you had overall like a very supportive family, a very supportive parents, you know, with your childhood growing up here and whatnot. Because it sounds a little different from what I often hear with not just NRIs, but like Asians in general, you know, like there's often a lot of pressure from Asian parents to achieve certain things, and when you don't, it's just like, it's bad.
I think they just wanted like me to be happy in whatever I chose. I mean, it was hard. So, you know, doing hair, that wasn't an easy journey.
Doing hair, just in case that wasn't
so
clear. Okay.
I'm a hairstylist, and of course, like my family kind of pushed me more towards like the medical field because everyone in my family is in it, and I was like, that's just not for me. Like I can appreciate them, but that's just not like the path I want to go down. Still tried, you know, they kept trying to like just be like an anesthesiologist or a radiologist or something. I'm like, I don't want to be in hospitals, period. Like I just get really weird around them.
Okay.
I got to a certain age and they were like, well, you need to pick something and go with it. And I was like, well, I am picking something. You don't like it, you know? And I think that's when they realized like what was happening there. Then I kind of just did it on my own. I found a beauty school. I went and like did my like interview thing and how much like did all that financial aid stuff. And then I went to them and I told them, look, like, I'm going to get this state mandated license and this is the school I'm going to go to and this is my start date. And there's that, you know, like you can either like be with me or, you know, like, but this is what I'm going to do. And it was kind of hard.
Why was it hard?
I think mostly it was hard because my dad actually like hates all that stuff. He thinks it's just too much sometimes, you know, especially living in LA. Like people get surgery. And
I see. Okay, I was like too much.
And,
what? Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Like so much vanity. Like people are very vain. And I think he also thought like, oh, she might just like be behind a chair at some salon for the rest of her life. And then I kind of showed them like, no, like there's a lot of options. Like you're really independent in what you have to do. And yeah, you struggle a little bit, you know, at the beginning, but I think everybody does, like in anything they choose. And there is a lot of competition. If you have a passion for something and you know, like that's kind of what you want to do and pursue it, I think like as long as you're happy doing it, you know, like I think that's all that matters. So.
But how long was it before they were like, okay, cool?
I think it's still kind of like.
Really?
Yeah, sometimes. Mainly because I don't have anybody in my family that's in this industry.
Right.
So I think they always try to give me their advice. But for the most part, like, you know, they are pretty supportive.
And that's really awesome. And it's really cool that you get to do that. When I come, because I get a lot of messages from Indians who are like, what do I do? Like my dad wants me to do this, my mom wants me to do this, but I really want to do this thing over here. And I'm like, I don't want to give you advice that's going to create a rift in your family. My whole thing is though, if you're able to pursue what you really want to do, like if you're very confident in the possibilities of your success in that medium, in that arena, that area, I say go for it. And eventually your parents will come around to it, just like yours did.
Yeah.
They were reluctant at first, but they've come around to it after you've demonstrated more and more that you're capable and you're making it happen and you're making it work.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're not making like doctor money yet, but you're demonstrating that you're independent and able to make this happen.
Yeah, is the key word.
Yeah. No, I understand.
No,
like it's a whole path, right? I get it.
They saw me, you know, start from square one, and the fact that I never gave up and that I just kept going at it, and I was like, no, like this is what I want to do. I'm gonna get it or I'm gonna die trying. Like, so I think that's really what pushed them to be like, okay, like she's not giving it up, like so we gotta like accept it or I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, your perseverance obviously is something they recognize, and I wonder how that would translate if this was taking place in India, like how parents would respond, how they would behave, if they would just kick you out, or if they would eventually acknowledge, okay, clearly you are not giving this up, and you are extremely passionate about it. We're gonna let this happen.
Yeah, and I think about that all the time too. Actually, I'm the only one in my, like, out of my cousins that was born there. So I was like this close to like a completely different life. I think about that so much. What if I hadn't came here?
Yeah.
And, like, could I be doing what I'm doing now? Or would I be like a nurse and be married with kids by now?
Right.
You know?
You'd have a completely different life.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's without a doubt. If you were raised in India instead, it's just like, that's just by, you know, naturally you'd have a completely different life. Just like if I was raised in a slightly different part of Los Angeles, I could have had a completely different life.
Yeah.
I mean, who your neighbors are, who your friends are at school can have a dramatic impact, like a butterfly effect, on what the outcome of your adulthood is eventually, right? You're in a completely different country, it's gonna have an even more dramatic effect.
And it's not to say that you can't like overcome that, you know, like there's so many people who break out of that.
I just think your story's cool that insofar as you persevered and your parents were eventually accepting of it, even though it's not the most common Asian pursuit, or at least common Indian pursuit.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool. I think that's awesome that they were eventually, that there's, I mean, obviously it's still in process, but the fact that they're more supportive now than they were at the beginning, it's progress, and that's really cool.
Yeah.
And I hope, you know, that I always hope to see that more in Indian families in India, because a lot of the movies talk about that stuff. A lot of the Indian films actually talk about like embracing what your child wishes to do and not necessarily forcing them down a certain road, you know?
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.